With a cane gripped tightly in his trembling hand and 33 years of selfless service etched deep into his soul, Henry Callahan limped into the DMV. But to them, to those cold, unseeing eyes behind the counter, he wasn't a soldier who'd given everything, he was just an old man, frail and forgettable. How could they miss the warrior standing right there? They mocked his halting steps, brushed aside his records like scraps of paper, and told him, with infuriating calm, that his pain, didn't measure up. He didn't shout, didn't lash out, oh no, Henry just unfolded a letter, a single sheet signed by a name they'd never dared to dream of. And then, just 10 minutes later, can you believe it, the federal government stormed through that door, and the whole room froze in awe. Finally, justice had arrived. Welcome to Heartfelt Gratitude Stories, where we peel back the layers of compassion and kindness to reveal the beating heart beneath. So, what really happened that day? Let's dive in and find out. Picture this, late October in Redford, Missouri, the air crisp with the bite of fall. The bell above the DMV door jingled softly, such a gentle sound for such a heavy moment, as Henry Callahan stepped inside. It was just after 9 a.m., but already the line stretched long, a weary serpent of slouched shoulders and restless sighs. People clutched folders and forms like they were battle plans drawn in the heat of war. Henry didn't mind the wait, not one bit. He'd stood in lines far longer, lines for gear under a scorching sun, lines for meals that barely filled the belly, lines where staying alert meant staying alive. He shuffled forward, slow and steady, leaning hard on a wooden cane smoothed by years of his own touch, its surface worn by the fingers of a man who'd never given up. His left leg dragged, stiff and stubborn, a relic of an injury older than most of the souls around him. His coat, clean but faded, hung on his frame like a flag weathered by time, his boots, scuffed yet resolute, carried him forward. On his head sat a plain baseball cap, adorned with one word in gold thread, veteran. No unit, no campaign, just that. Wasn't that enough? When his number finally echoed through the room, G042, Henry made his way to counter 4. Behind the glass sat a woman in her early 30s, adjusting her name tag with a flick of her wrist, Brenda, customer service specialist. Her nails gleamed, perfectly manicured, but her smile. Barely there, a ghost of courtesy that never touched her eyes. She glanced up as Henry approached, her greeting flat and lifeless. Yes, sir, what are we here for today? Could she sound any less interested? Henry set his envelope down with care, easing himself into the chair like a man who knew pain too well. I'm here about a level 3 disability placard, he said, his voice low, thick with the gravel of a life hard-lived. Got all the forms from the VA right here. Brenda snatched those documents, flipping through them with the cold, practiced speed of someone who'd said no more times than she could count. Henry's heart sank, another fight, another wall to climb. Not again. Her brow furrowed, just a flicker. Sir, this form's missing the state physician's signature, she said, tapping a highlighted section with a nail that clicked like a judge's gavel. And these supporting documents? Honestly, they're a little vague. Henry didn't flinch, not even a twitch. They're from the Department of Veterans Affairs, he replied, steady as a rock. They've certified my mobility restrictions. Brenda sighed, a sound that carried the weight of 1,000 dismissals. I understand that, but we go by state statute here. We need a very specific medical attestation, especially for a level 3. She flashed a tight, professional smile, oh, how it stung. Perhaps a lower-level placard would be more appropriate, or you can try reapplying once you have more substantial evidence. No malice, no venom, just that soul-crushing bureaucratic indifference that wore a man down faster than bullets ever could. Henry nodded slowly, but something in him stiffened, like an ancient wall bracing for a storm. I served 33 years, he said, his voice quiet but piercing, eyes locked on hers, 8 of those with special operations. The cane's not for decoration. Did she even hear him? Brenda didn't answer, didn't even blink. Her eyes just flicked to the next number on the screen, as if his words were dust in the wind. Behind Henry, someone cleared their throat, impatient and loud. He glanced around, a teenager lost in his phone, a mother bouncing a fussy baby, a suit checking his watch with a scowl. No one saw him, not the real him. To them, he was just another old man clogging up their day. Henry rose, slow and deliberate, pocketing that envelope that now felt like a lead weight in his soul. Outside, the autumn wind sliced across the parking lot, sharp as a blade, dry leaves chasing each other along the pavement as he stepped onto the sidewalk. How could a place so ordinary feel like a battlefield? He didn't look back, not once. That afternoon, Henry retreated to his apartment, a modest second-floor walk-up on the edge of Redford, quiet, clean, a sanctuary of a life well lived. He hung his coat by the door, lowered himself into his worn recliner, and let out a breath that carried a weight far beyond his years. On the coffee table sat a wooden box, simple but polished by hands that cared. Inside, ribbons, commendations, the Distinguished Service Cross, 3 silver stars, a row of purple hearts, proof of sacrifice, of blood spilled, of years given in silence. He closed the lid gently, tenderly. The world didn't ask about those medals anymore, not here, not in that endless DMV line, not when your cane squeaked and your forms weren't perfect. His body had carried battlefields with names most couldn't pronounce, now it struggled to haul groceries from a far-off parking spot. And today, even that small dignity was denied him. Henry leaned back, fingers interlocked over his chest, eyes drifting to the ceiling. He wasn't angry, no, that fire had burned out long ago. He wasn't surprised, how could he be? But he was tired, and that tiredness had a weight all its own, heavy and relentless. He'd spent a lifetime fighting, but this? This was different, quieter, meaner, lonelier. He closed his eyes, and for the first time in ages, Henry Callahan wondered, would anyone ever remember what a man like him had paid? But soon, oh, so soon, someone would, and that quiet dismissal at counter 4 would be the last mistake that office ever dared to make. 3 days later, Henry Callahan stepped back through those DMV doors, same scuffed linoleum, same buzzing lights, same stale smell of cleaner and despair. But something about him had shifted, hadn't it? His stride was slower but deliberate, each step a testament to a resolve unbroken. His shoulders, though hunched by time, carried a quiet, unshakable weight, like a soldier returning to a fight he didn't pick but wouldn't flee. He wasn't going down without a stand. In his hand, a thicker envelope, VA forms, medical records, every document signed and sealed, a fortress of proof. He'd called in every favor left at the Veterans Affairs office downtown, unearthed files buried in red tape, pulled letters he hadn't touched in years. He'd done his part, now it was their turn. This time, the clerk was different, an older woman with steel-gray hair and glasses perched low on her nose. Her tag read Brenda M., Supervisor. Henry nodded once, a silent salute, as he approached. Brenda looked up, her face a mask of professionalism. "Yes, sir, back again," she asked, her tone unreadable. Henry slid the envelope across, his voice soft but firm. "Updated documents, everything you asked for." Brenda didn't reply right away, just opened that envelope, laid out the papers with a slow, deliberate precision, and started reading. Behind her, a younger guy leaned in, tall, early 20s, DMV polo tucked too tight, badge reading Kyle. He smirked as he peeked at the top page over her shoulder. "Still going for level 3, huh?" he muttered, loud enough for Henry to catch. "Ambitious, old man." Brenda didn't flinch, Henry kept his gaze steady. Kyle pressed on, undeterred. "These from the VA?" he asked, waving at the papers. "Yeah, we've seen a ton of those, pretty vague, huh? You'd think government docs would follow their own rules." Henry said nothing, why should he? His silence was his armor, but Kyle's grin just grew wider. "Pop, pop, pop," he chuckled under his breath, like it was some grand joke. "Guess the VA ain't king around here, huh?" Did this kid have any clue who he was taunting? Brenda cleared her throat, sharp, cutting. Kyle, go check the toner in machine 3, she snapped. Kyle rolled his eyes and sauntered off, still smirking like a fool. Brenda turned back to Henry. These reports, sure, they mention chronic pain, they say you've got limited mobility, but nothing here explicitly hits the standard in 7.4 subsection B. We need clearer language. Henry's voice stayed calm, unshaken. My VA docs treat these injuries every month, shrapnel in my leg, parachute fracture in my knee. That's what's in there. Brenda tapped her pen, a staccato of doubt. We need a state-certified evaluation, not just federal. She started sliding the papers back, another rejection. But Henry didn't take them. Instead, he reached into his coat pocket, slow and careful, and pulled out a worn letter, its creases deep from years of handling. With a reverence born of memory, he laid it on the counter. This wasn't just paper, this was power. Brenda glanced at it, expecting more red tape, but then her eyes snagged on the header, United States Army Field Command. She froze, read the first paragraph, then the next. Kyle strolled back with a half-empty toner cartridge just in time to see her face shift, boredom fading, confusion rising, then recognition slamming home. Her fingers tightened on the letter's edges, knuckles whitening. She read the signature 3 times, Captain Marcus A. Thorne. Who was that, you ask? Only a legend. Kyle leaned in, whispering, who's that? Brenda didn't answer, she didn't need to. She knew Marcus Thorne, now a 4-star general, chief advisor to the Joint Command Council, a name that echoed through military halls and beyond, a man who didn't pen letters like this unless they mattered. Henry spoke, soft as a whisper, eyes on the counter. That letter was written in country, after a mission that never hit the papers. Captain Thorne was a young officer, I was his platoon sergeant. Brenda's voice trembled. You served with Marcus Thorne? Henry nodded once. He signed that after I dragged him out of a burning transport under fire. We lost 5 that night. He made it home, so did I, just barely. Kyle's smirk vanished, gone in an instant. A heavy silence fell, not the usual DMV drone, but something profound, electric. Brenda stared at that signature, lost, when the room shifted again. An older woman in a navy blue coat stepped out of line, phone in hand, dialing with quiet urgency. Henry caught it, the purpose in her tone, not panic but resolve. When she murmured, Governor's office, he knew she'd heard that name too, and she wasn't letting it slide. Brenda straightened, eyes darting to the door. Something big was coming, bigger than forms or rules, and for the first time, she feared she'd crossed a line she couldn't uncross. 10 minutes later, can you imagine, the doors burst open, and in marched the federal government, 3 men, their presence a thunderclap. The room stopped, time itself held its breath. The leader, in a suit sharp as a blade, strode forward, Deputy Director David Ramirez, Regional Office of Veteran Affairs Oversight, flanked by 2 agents with earpieces humming. He didn't pause, didn't take a number, just cut straight to counter 4, where Henry stood, coat buttoned tight, that letter still a quiet sentinel between him and Brenda. Justice had arrived. Brenda paled, Kyle took a step back. Ramirez stopped, his voice ringing clear. Master Sergeant Henry Callahan. Respect dripped from every syllable. Was this the moment Henry had waited for? Henry looked up, standing taller. Yes, sir, he said softly. Ramirez turned to the room, to Brenda, to Kyle, to everyone who dared to look away. I understand there's been a delay in processing this man's application for a level 3 disability placard. No one dared speak, how could they? He pulled a file from a leather portfolio, holding it like a proclamation. Master Sergeant Henry Callahan, United States Army Special Forces, 33 years active duty, 12 in classified ops, Distinguished Service Cross, 3 Silver Stars, 6 Purple Hearts, 5 Bronze Stars with Valor, Joint Service Commendation for pulling wounded under fire. The room gasped, this was no ordinary man. Ramirez's gaze cut to Brenda. You questioned his integrity, doubted VA physicians, called his combat wounds aches. You saw a hero and dismissed him. How could they be so blind? He turned to Henry. I'm sorry, Sergeant, this isn't how we treat our heroes. Henry felt it, seen at last. Ramirez barked, process his placard, now. An agent leapt to it, and soon Ramirez held that blue square of plastic, presenting it like a sacred offering. On behalf of a grateful nation, I apologize, he said. Henry took it, hands shaking, whispering, thank you. How long had it been since he'd been truly seen? The room saluted as Henry left, cane tapping, every eye on him. That night, in his quiet apartment, he sat with his medals and that placard, validation at last. He called Marcus Thorne, and they laughed like soldiers again. Across town, Brenda wept, remembering her silent grandfather, vowing to change. Word spread, Veterans Hall whispered Henry's name with awe, a legend reborn. He walked the streets of Redford, head high, reclaiming what was his. A hero, always. Even in the darkest moments, kindness finds a way, doesn't it? Imagine the scene, a biting gust of cold air rushes through the Redford DMV, followed by the resounding clunk of boots on tile. Can you believe it? Just 10 minutes ago, one phone call, one single, powerful name, changed everything. Now, the front doors burst open with a force that screamed importance, as if the building itself sensed the weight of what was coming. 3 men stormed in, their presence electric. Leading them was Deputy Director David Ramirez from the Regional Office of Veteran Affairs Oversight, his dark suit so crisp it might have been carved from steel. Flanking him were 2 federal agents, earpieces glinting, suits matching in stern precision. Oh, how the room hushed, every murmur, every rustle, swallowed by their arrival. Ramirez didn't hesitate. No stopping at the information desk, no fumbling for a number, no polite inquiries. Why would he? He marched right past the line, past the clerk frozen in shock, her jaw practically on the floor, and straight to counter 4. There stood Henry Callahan, a figure of quiet resilience, his worn coat buttoned tight against the world, that unassuming letter lying between him and Brenda like a silent plea. Brenda's face? White as a ghost. Kyle, the cocky young clerk who'd sneered earlier, stumbled back a step, his confidence crumbling. What had they gotten themselves into? Ramirez halted mere inches from the counter, and the silence, oh, it was deafening. Then, his voice cut through, firm yet woven with something rare and beautiful, respect. Master Sergeant Henry Callahan, he asked. Henry lifted his gaze, and can you imagine the rush in his chest? It had been years since anyone spoke his name like it carried weight, like it mattered. Yes, sir, he replied, his voice soft but steady, his spine straightening just a touch despite the ache of old wounds. Could this be the moment he'd waited for? With a single nod, Ramirez turned, his eyes sweeping over Brenda, Kyle, and the gawking crowd of clerks and customers. I understand, he said, his tone unshakable, that there's been a delay in processing this gentleman's application for a Level 3 disability placard. No one dared answer, how could they? The truth was plain as day, heavy as the air around them. From a sleek black leather portfolio, held by one of the agents like a sacred relic, Ramirez drew a file. He raised it high, a verdict in his grip. Let me clarify something for the record, he declared, and the room froze, every breath held, every heart pounding. Master Sergeant Henry Callahan, United States Army Special Forces, served 33 years in active duty, including 12 in classified operations that would make your head spin. Can you picture it? The courage, the sacrifice. Recipient of the Distinguished Service Cross for Extraordinary Valor, 3 Silver Stars, 6 Purple Hearts, 5 Bronze Stars with Valor, and a Joint Service Commendation for dragging wounded soldiers to safety under enemy fire. Each word landed like a thunderclap, reverberating through the stunned silence. Kyle's smug grin. Gone. He looked like the earth had swallowed his footing, his face a mask of dread. Brenda's hands shook against the counter, trembling with the realization of her blunder. Ramirez's gaze locked onto her, hard and unyielding. This man's injuries, documented by the VA, confirmed by review, cripple his mobility. He qualifies for that placard, a decision backed by my office and, he lifted the file higher, by General Marcus Thorne himself. Gasps erupted from the back. Thorne's name alone was a legend. Who were they to question such a man? Stepping closer, Ramirez's voice dropped to a fierce whisper. You questioned his integrity. You doubted VA-certified doctors. You brushed off combat wounds as aches and pains. You judged him by his age, his posture, the threadbare coat he wears, instead of the mountain of service he carries. The word stung, hanging there like a storm cloud ready to burst. Then, softer, that ends now. Oh, the finality in his tone, could they feel the shame sinking in? Brenda's mouth opened, then snapped shut, words failing her. Kyle edged toward the hallway, eyes darting anywhere but at Henry, the man he'd mocked just minutes ago. Ramirez turned back to Henry, his expression softening. I'm sorry, Sergeant, he said, voice low and sincere. This isn't how we treat our heroes. Henry didn't speak, did he need to? For the first time in days, maybe weeks, he felt seen, his dignity flickering back to life like a flame in the dark. With a sharp nod, Ramirez signaled an agent. Get his placard processed, immediately. No more delays. The agent leapt into action, fingers flying over the keyboard, bypassing the queue with a speed that left the receptionist wide-eyed. Had she ever seen such urgency? Brenda stood there, still pale, still silent, until Ramirez's icy voice cut through again. This office will face a full compliance review by state and federal oversight, starting tomorrow morning, effective immediately. A pause, then to Kyle, if I were you, I'd start revising your resume. No one laughed. No one breathed. The weight of it all was crushing. The agent returned, a gleaming level 3 disability placard in hand, passing it not to Henry but to Ramirez. The deputy director turned, cradling it with both hands like it was something holy. Master Sergeant Callahan, he said, stepping forward, on behalf of a grateful department and a nation that too often forgets who paid for its freedoms, I apologize. He offered it to Henry, and oh, what a moment. Henry took it quietly, his voice a whisper. Thank you. No fanfare, no bravado, just the steady grace of a man who'd fought silently and finally been heard. Could you feel the justice in the air? As Ramirez and his agents turned to leave, the room stayed locked in awe. Then, from the back, a man in a faded USMC hat rose, slow and deliberate, and saluted. Others followed. Can you see it? A ripple of honor spreading through the crowd. The line stopped, but something greater began, justice, respect, remembrance. Henry moved toward the exit, his cane tapping softly, each step a testament to his strength. For the first time since he'd walked in, every eye followed him, not with annoyance, but with reverence. Oh, how the tide had turned. That night, Henry sat alone in his living room, the only light a warm amber glow from a single lamp, the quiet hum of the old fridge drifting down the hall. Before him lay that small square of laminated blue plastic, the placard, hard won after so much struggle. Beside it, his wooden box yawned open, untouched for years. He reached in, fingers brushing a ribbon frayed at the edges, a citation faded with time, a silver star that once gleamed under a desert sun. He set the placard next to them, not as a prize, but as a piece of his story, a sign his country hadn't forgotten. Can you feel the weight of that moment? He stared at it, lost in thought, then reached for the phone. The number flowed from his memory like an old song. It rang once, twice, then, Henry. A voice warm and commanding broke through. Henry smiled faintly. Evening, Marcus. God, it's good to hear your voice. General Marcus Thorne exclaimed, and just like that, decades dissolved, they were soldiers again, laughing, remembering. I heard what happened, Marcus said, softer now. They called me before the feds even left. Henry chuckled. Wasn't expecting a cavalry charge, but it helped. No, Marcus shot back, voice tight with emotion, it wasn't help, it was correction, long overdue. A pause, then, you carried me out of that wreckage, Henry. I wouldn't be here without you. Don't think I've forgotten. Henry closed his eyes, letting the words wash over him. Did he ever imagine they'd still matter so much? Before hanging up, Marcus added, you were my sergeant, my anchor, my compass. The system might forget men like you, but not me, never me. Henry whispered, thank you, and as the line went quiet, a burden lifted from his chest. Across town, Brenda sat on her bed in a dim apartment above a pharmacy, the laptop's glow casting shadows on her tear-streaked face. She'd spent an hour digging into Henry Callahan's story, his awards, his bravery, and then she wept, soft and broken. She thought of her grandfather, Corporal Walter Marsh, silent after Korea, his medals hidden away, flinching at every loud noise. As a teenager, she'd sighed at his slow steps, now, she'd give anything to tell him she understood. Wiping her eyes, she shut the laptop. She couldn't erase her words to Henry, but oh, how she swore she'd never fail someone like him again. Respect wasn't optional, it was owed. By the next week, Henry's name buzzed through Redford. At Veterans Hall, it rang with awe, not memory, but recognition. At the gas station, someone paid for his coffee, at the diner, the waitress saved his window seat. A note appeared on his doorstep, I served too. Thank you for not letting them forget. Even the mayor's office spoke up, Redford honors Master Sergeant Callahan and urges all to treat veterans with dignity. Short, but powerful, words matched by deeds. The DMV shifted too, staff changed, oversight tightened. Kyle. Gone by month's end. Brenda stayed, quieter now, arriving early, listening harder, knowing every form hid a story worth hearing. The next morning, dawn painted Redford's rooftops gold. Henry stepped outside, cane in hand, jacket snug against the chill. The street lay still, dew sparkling on mailboxes. He walked slowly, just to the sidewalk, but oh, how he carried himself, head high, back straight, cane clicking with purpose. A couple passed, nodding, smiling, Henry tipped his cap, and this time, the world gave back, not pity, but respect. With each step, he reclaimed what should never have been lost. As the sun rose over Redford, Missouri, this old soldier pressed on, not chasing glory, but bearing it quietly, as always. In our darkest moments, kindness finds a way, often in the stillest corners. Not every helper seeks praise, some just want to know someone's burden eased today. And sometimes, that's enough to change a life. You might forget this tale, but if no one shares it, history fades to silence. Subscribe to Heartfelt Gratitude Stories, where justice shines, kindness endures, and no quiet hero is ever lost.